Machine. We're a lead generation and marketing company based in Southampton. And today, myself and my colleague Kosh, we're going to be talking you through how to turn your lead generation from zero to hero. So what we'll do is we'll get started. So there's a little bit about us. So I'm Olivia Fry, I'm the Business Development Manager here. And then later on, you'll see my colleague Kosh. He's going to be talking you through all these strategies. He's the director here. That's our information down the bottom. And we thought we'd put our pictures up there in case you hadn't seen enough of our faces by the end of today. So feel free to get in touch with us after this if you want to have a chat or have any questions and things like that. Just, you can make a note of those conversations. So the things that we're going to cover today, so we're going to look into really targeting your ideal demographic, how you can tap into who exactly it is you're targeting. Then we're going to move on to the 3 key channels when it comes to direct lead generation and how you can use them to connect with your audience. Then we're going to move on to the messaging that gets you answers. I know there's probably a few people out there that send a lot of messages but struggle really to get the answers from the people that you're really trying to speak to. So we're really going to hone in on what it is that you can say in order to get those answers that you want. Then we're going to talk about how you can qualify your leads correctly in order to not spend time with people that aren't really interested in your service and really make a focus on who it is that you're trying to target. Then finally, we're going to move on to talking about how you can put together a multi-channel lead generation strategy and implement it into your business in order to help you get the most out of your lead generation. So I'm going to pass on to my colleague Kosh in just a second, and then he's going to talk you through all of this in a bit more detail.
Hi there, good morning everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Kosh Patel. I'm one of the directors here. Can I just get a quick thumbs up if everyone can hear me? Cool, spot on. Brilliant. Well, thank you for joining us. We've got a lot to get through. Probably got half an hour or so to do it. Don't want to take too much of your time. So let's get straight into it and let's look at our correct demographic. So before we actually start a campaign, we've got a few people in here that are in the marketing industry, and I'm sure they'll agree. What we really need to do is get the correct demographic. Now, when a lot of people think of demographics, I think of the base of the campaign. So if you imagine a pyramid, if you don't have the base, you can't build anything on top. The rest of the campaign becomes completely irrelevant. So, the average individual will think of demographics as your physical demographics, such as your industry, your location, your business size, your turnover. That is definitely one way of looking at demographics. But I think to really launch a top quality marketing campaign, what we have to look a bit deeper, and we have to really look to understand the pain that we are fixing. So what I mean by that is you might look at your top 5, your top 6 customers, and what you really want to do is you want to have a look at what are you solving for them. So when they first came to you, we've got the physical demographic. Now everyone can do that. You can buy that from a data house, a data company. We can pick up databases left, right, and centre. What we really want to do, we want to understand on this, what pains are we solving for our clients or our customers? So if everyone can just use the chat function, and just if you can put in maybe 1 or 2 quick bullet points about what pains do you solve for your clients, and I'll pick a few out. So we've got Harry from Mr. Digital with us today. He's covered with not getting enough leads. So of course, that's number 1 for any marketing company. When they come to you, they're not getting enough leads. That's one key pain they're suffering. We've got Steve here, business forecasting. I'm assuming what Steve means by that, a lack of. So prior to them, approaching Steve, there's a lack of business forecasting. Harley here, quality of leads. Okay, number 1, similar to Harry. Okay, we've got Atta, and I believe he's from World Options. So customer service at the point of call. So, what are we doing here? So Heather, Stress and Time, conference events company. So all these things are great. And what we really need to do is we need to work this into our marketing, into our lead generation campaign. And you have to start every campaign with the pain. Now, what you'll typically get is, and I'm sure we've all had this, what we get quite often, I get phone calls from events companies trying to sell me days at Ascot, F1, etc., etc. And they're just pitching a solution down the line to you. And really, if I don't like the F1, I might like cricket. So, you're pitching the wrong solution to me. So a bad salesperson, a bad marketing individual starts with solutions. What we have to do is understand the pain, which you guys have, highlighted in the chat box there. Okay. Once we have our pain point, what happens a lot is people move straight onto solutions. Now, I don't think that's right because, in everyone's industries, there are multiple businesses that do what they do. And what your client's really interested in is, number one, can they solve the pain that they're facing? And secondly, how would they feel after working with you? So, for example, Heather put stress and lack of time for the events company that she runs. For example, she could frame her marketing around, after working with Heather's company, our clients feel stress-free and have more time to concentrate on the event. So we want to start with the pain, and we can extract that through questioning or statements. And then we want to make a really hard-hitting statement at our prospects. Say, look, after working with us, this is what our clients find. Once we do this, we can then move on to the solution offering. So firstly, once we do our demographics, when we're sat down making the base of this campaign, we have our physical demographic. That makes up 20% of what I would say is a good demographic. The other 80% actually comes from, what pain are we solving and what afters are they going to get after, once they've worked with us. Because if we're targeting individuals that don't suffer the pain that we're solving, they're never going to really have a need to purchase our service or product. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to move on now. So what channels do you guys use for lead generation? Once again, using the chat box, feel free to just enter in there. What channels are you guys using for lead generation currently? I'm sure there'll be a wide range. So LinkedIn from Steve, networking from Matt. Anyone else? No? Social media, Instagram, Facebook from Luna. Bodie, networking, introductions, referrals, and internal marketing referrals again. Okay, social media, email, referrals. So key one that keeps popping up is referrals, and that's great. Now, what my opinion on referrals are, it can take our businesses to a certain place, but to really progress it through, how many times can you keep asking individuals for referrals or hoping that referral comes? We've got referral networking, LinkedIn networking, both LinkedIn and networking for building relationships. So two key ones here seems LinkedIn, and it seems like networking and referral-based marketing. It's funny, at the moment, there's no actual direct lead generation strategy that's come out of this chat, which I'm assuming is why you're all here today. So, in my opinion, the three key channels for direct lead generation are, you've got LinkedIn. Okay, so we want our direct messaging via LinkedIn and connecting with the relevant demographic. Okay, we have email marketing. Okay, and then we have our telemarketing. But what I want to start on is with email marketing. Now, we all get our mail shots from MailChimp, Blue Squared. There's loads of platforms, but I'm sure I'm in agreement here. But if you'd like to put a thumb up in your chat box, how many of you actually read a mail shot and how often? No, I'm, maybe 10% of this call. Okay. The reason is that mail shot, as soon as we get it, psychologically, we know that's gone out to 1,000 people, 1,500 people, 2,000 people. Okay. It's not targeted marketing. You're not providing value to your client or your prospect. So number one, the email marketing is not to generate leads. Okay. I hear a lot of people come to us, Coach, I've invested money here in a bot sequence. Okay. That bot sequence is 5 predetermined messages worked on an algorithm. Now, in my opinion, I don't think that's personal enough to access your correct target market. So firstly, what we want to do, we want to work on educating our prospects. How do we do that? Okay, blogs, case studies, resources. What educational value can we provide our clients, our prospects, through our email marketing to really get them involved and they understand exactly what we do? Okay, so in this modern market, what I'm a firm believer, we have to give away value to get back inquiries. Okay, you have to build that trust up. Now, if you can actually send out to a correct demographic a really valuable resource, they're going to build trust, they're going to build credibility. So I'll give you an example. We work with a client called Demand Solutions. They're a supply chain software, okay, working in very large corporate firms to basically automate their supply chains. Now, the individuals we are targeting, they are not commonly at their desks. They're not always there for us to speak at. So what we created some really high-end resources explaining what's going on in the supply chain industry at the moment and breaking that down and just sending it out to these guys. Really personal, informal message saying, look, I know you're busy, but this could be really of use to you. What we found off the back of that, a lot of people have come back saying, great material, that's really helpful. I'll roll that out to my team. So what you've done is all of a sudden in their mind, whenever the issue or the challenge occurs, we are already there in the forefront of their minds. Now, the second reason we do email marketing is to familiarize our prospects with our brand. Okay, so we want to be using language that might be on our culture statements. We want to be using language that might be on our branding documentation. We want to be using language that is part of our brand, images that are part of our brand, video content that shows us, that can show our clients exactly who we are, shows our prospects who we are. So if we can go through educating and familiarizing through our email marketing, that's that ticked off. So if we move on to the next channel. So we've got LinkedIn direct messaging, okay? Now, I see loads about this. Some people believe in it, some people don't. I'm a firm believer if you're on LinkedIn, and if you're a business owner or you're in a sales capacity, if you approach LinkedIn in the correct manner, there's leads there to be had. I hear loads of people say, I don't accept connections from people I don't know. Each to their own, but I think that's ridiculous because you have to build your network. If we're not accepting connection with people we don't know, how are we ever going to build our network? A lot of you say you networking and referrals. How many networking events can we get out to when we've got LinkedIn at the power of our laptops, computers? Is there in front of us? So firstly, when we're LinkedIn and we're finding our people, let's use Sales Navigator if you have access to it. If not, let's do our research on these companies before we reach them. Okay, so number one, main reason for LinkedIn direct messaging is you want to strike a relevance with your clients or prospect. Now, what I mean by that is a LinkedIn message, in my opinion, should be no more than 75 to 100 words, because typically these are seen on the mobile phone. Okay, and we don't want to bother them with an essay or a long paragraph, basically telling them what we do because they don't care. We want to be using smart lines. So for ourselves, we talk to our prospects in a way of, we typically work with businesses and business owners who are starved of time, they lack the resource, or they generally just don't have the correct knowledge on how to generate the right leads for them. Does that sound like you? Okay, so that there straight away you're going and you're saying, look, we typically work with 1, 2, and 3. Does that sound like you? Now, I know people might be sat there going, oh, you might be excluding the others, but marketing is a numbers game, and we have to get the averages to play in our favor. We can't cover every base in a LinkedIn message. Otherwise, that's why we get these big, long paragraphs that come through. So really talking about, what are the 3 pains, once again, that people work with us and putting that into messaging, striking that relevance. So when someone reads that, they go, do you know what? I need to generate leads, but I've got such an existing clientele. I'm spending all my time with customer service, but I need to grow the business, so I need to bring in new leads elsewhere. Okay. Next, we want to move on to, we need to make our offering beneficial to our prospect. So within this message, we also want to tell them why we think we can help them. Now, this is where the research element comes into it and the humanized touch. You can't use a bot for this because it's just going to become very, very same throughout the whole process. Now, for example, if you're targeting software companies and you use Sales Navigator, you put IT and software in. There's so many different types of software companies targeting different markets. So when I say make the message beneficial, you might have to go on their website, spend 2-3 minutes, have a quick look at what they do, and really change the messaging to say, look, Mr. Customer, we've worked with, for example, construction-based software companies. I know how the market operates. So by making it beneficial. And the final element of LinkedIn direct messaging should be that call to action. So the lead generation part, okay? We have to put a call to action into our LinkedIn direct messaging. Of course, we want to strike relevance. We want to give them something beneficial, and also they'll see the company name again, okay? So when we move on to the next lead generation channel, you'll see why this is so important, because they've seen our company name via email, they're now seeing it via LinkedIn, okay? But we have to put a call to action. Now, a lot of people say to me, Coach, I'm not booking the meetings. I can't get what I want. Are you asking the question? So many people just don't ask the question. So really what we have to concentrate on, what is our call to action? Are we directing them from LinkedIn to a landing page for a webinar? Are we directing them from LinkedIn onto our website to fill out a contact form? Are we directing them from LinkedIn onto our free resources page? Once again, giving them value. Or are we directing them straight for a telephone or a Zoom meeting for us? We need to have a call to action, because those prospects that we want, if they are interested, they need to know what the next steps are. So relevance, make it beneficial, and make sure there's a call to action to generate the lead from it. So moving on to telemarketing. Now, this is quite interesting. A lot of people think we just do telemarketing. So we are experts in this field. We have added other channels to our game as well. Now, the number one thing about telemarketing, when someone tells me they get nothing from it, I struggle to believe that, because it will be the number one tool for intelligence gathering. Okay, if you ask the correct questions, which we'll come on to in a second, you are guaranteed from every call you make to walk away with some form of value. Now, if you're sat there, you can't sit down and go, look, I made 500 calls and I'm getting negative responses. That's not a prospect problem, that's a you problem. We've got to go back to the drawing table and amend our offering. What is our offering? Why are they not talking to us? Because they will be talking to someone else. So number one, we want to gather intelligence. Understand maybe on the ground level, if we want to speak to ops director, finance director, managing director, these people are all reported to by a bottom line within the business, okay? So, for example, we do work for a interior design company. We ideally need to speak to the marketing director to get sign off on show homes, but we don't understand what's going on ground level until we speak to the marketing assistants who are actually dealing with these show homes. So we want to gather the intelligence through this almost second level staff, and then we have that intelligence to then go to our prime decision maker and say, look, Lily in marketing told me this, or this is what I was told. Secondly, with telemarketing, once again, it's lead generation. Once you've gathered your intelligence through asking good questions, what we want to do is we want them to book a meeting with us, have a call with us. We need a call to action. And if we've got them on the phone, there is no stronger call to action than to proceed that into a meeting. Now, in an ideal world, we want face-to-face. Obviously, business has become as sort of spread across the country and internationally as it's ever been due to Zoom, Teams, and COVID that we've been through. But worst case scenario, let's get them on a Teams where we can see them face-to-face, okay? Where we can actually have a look at what they're thinking when we're talking to them. So make sure that call to action is strong, but also do not give them a weak call to action. A call to action where they may be able to just say, yeah, drop me an email, okay? Because that is not an interest. They're not interested in what you're offering. They're just trying to get you off the phone. And finally, relationship building. If we can't get out of that telemarketing call with a lead generated or intelligence, okay, what we can do is we can put a bit of personality into it. We can allow these people to know what it might be like to work with Harry at Mr. Digital, or Heather at Complete Conferences, or Atta at World Options, okay? We can let them know our personalities in how we respond to them not being interested. So in the future, if they have a need for our services, the first thing they're going to think of is us, okay? So don't forget that if there isn't a lead there to be generated, don't just put the phone down, which too many people do. Really work on that relationship, try and build some rapport, some common ground, maybe have a laugh with them, because every decision maker you speak to, especially through telemarketing, they will appreciate what you're doing because at some point they've had to grow their business. So don't feel like you're intruding, because that individual has had to do the same at some point, or they've had to employ someone to do the same. So intelligence gathering, lead generation with call to action, and relationship building. Okay. So does your messaging get you answers? So once again, using the chat function, I don't know quite what's happened to my AirPods. I can't hear you guys, but you can hear me. So I'm going to use the chat function. Let me just yes or no if your messaging gets answers. Whether that be through LinkedIn, email, on the phone, conversational messaging, and any other channels you're using. Do you honestly think it gets you answers? Okay, so Paula from Alexa Effects, not always. Sometimes Atta, sometimes Heather, sometimes Matthew. Okay. Interesting. We already have 4 sometimes. Dermot sometimes as well. LinkedIn occasionally, Bodie. Okay, cool. That's interesting. Cool. All right, so we've got a few sometimes coming in and an occasionally as well. What that tells me is overall, either we don't know if it's working for us. So are we tracking the KPIs per message? Are we potentially inputting A/B testing into our campaigns? Are we targeting one market segment with 2 different messages? Because I can promise you now, if you do that for 2 to 3 months, at the end of that 3-month period, you will have your golden message. So you might start with A/B testing, you might start with ABC testing, okay? But you've got to bear in mind that 2 weeks' time, that messaging might need to change, But put a date in line, 3 months' time, we're going to have our message that suits our segment, okay? But we will also have to keep adapting that as we go. So it's interesting you guys say sometimes, that's what I hear a lot. But I think some of you will be more than sometimes, and some of you will be less than sometimes. Obviously, if we're not tracking the KPIs, we don't really know. So maybe that's a call to action for anyone on here. Are we tracking our KPIs on our messaging? What response are we getting? Do we have a contact rate, a reply rate, and then a conversion rate upon all contacts we make? So if we move on, questions. So people always say to me, Coach, what is the right way to approach a prospective client or a prospect? Now, you may have spoken to a salesperson in the past who's just sick all over you, okay, with their solutions. We hate it. I don't think there's anyone on this call that actually appreciates it, okay? I've seen them at exhibitions, I get them on the phone, I've actually met a few in person, and it's just like they're just vomiting on you. We hate that, okay? But how about if we act a bit different and we sort of change our game slightly, okay, and start asking questions, exactly, Harry, the doctor approach. So when you go see the doctor doesn't assume what's wrong with you, the doctor has to ask you the questions, okay? So what questions can we ask that are going to really give us an insight to what this individual wants? So for example, nice simple one, why did you get in touch with me? You know, what is it that you're looking for? Now, these questions are questions that some people go, oh, I don't feel comfortable asking them. And when we get onto the qualification of the leads, these are the people that don't have qualified leads. Okay, we have to ask good questions, such as, in my case, what would it mean to your business if we could provide you with 25 leads a month, more than what you're generating now? Okay, for someone said time earlier, you know, what would it mean for you if we could give you back 20 hours time a month that you were maybe spending on IT, so an IT managed service company, you know, 20 hours a month, your team is spending organising the IT, we can give you that back. Because once we ask these questions, on the forefront of everyone's minds, our services are a cost. But I can promise you, everyone's service in this call is an investment. But until we can educate our prospects to understand that this isn't a cost, this is an investment, okay? You're investing in our IT managed service company to get a return back. So the 20 hours your staff were wasting, or you were wasting, sorting out your IT, we are now doing that in 10 hours. We might be billing you £1,000 plus VAT a month for that, but in that 20 hours, you could generate X amount of revenue. So a good question to ask if you're really feeling brave is ask the individual, what is an hour's worth their time worth? What is the worth of an hour of your time? Because then you can really start to go into numbers. Now, I could stand here and just talk, but when you start bringing numbers, stats, percentages into a conversation, it becomes believable. People will psychologically go, okay, that's right. Even if you use the wrong number, you could use the completely wrong number, right? But I'm sure you've had it in the past where people have gone, that makes sense, but you're not even using the right number. And there's companies out there that market through simply numbers. So our questions will allow us to unravel the pain, the who's, the what's, the where's, the why's, the how's. And when our Mrs. Customer starts talking to us, it's about saying, tell me more. Okay, so we listen. When people love to talk about themselves, so let them. Don't butt in with your solution if you think it's too early. Okay, let these individuals talk to us, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's a Teams meeting, whether it's telemarketing. When we're having these conversations, let them talk as much as you can. Now, a lot of people, I worked at the company previous to where I am now, they used to put a 15-minute time limit on conversations, which I thought was bizarre, because they wanted you to wrap the saying up and get rid of it. What would happen is the cancellation rate would be so much higher you don't actually understand what the prospect wants, and they don't understand what you do. So don't time your calls as they are wasting time here. If they want to talk for an hour, and you're going to get them fully embedded into your process, your company culture, and exactly what you're offering them, let them talk. So when we're doing our messaging, we have to ask powerful questions, okay? Whether that's conversational or written. So how do we qualify our leads currently? Once again, using the chat function. If you guys if you have a process, what do you do to qualify leads? How does that work? Do you use a CRM system? Does it go through deal stages? Just if a few of you could just put your thoughts in. So Perry uses Salesforce, very well known CRM, very good actually as well. Lead scoring, Daisy, interesting. Anyone else? No formal process yet, but I tend to use CRM, mostly done at CRM. Okay. Referrals mostly. Okay. Interesting. Anyone else? Right. Okay, so it seems like there's a bit of lead scoring in there, CRM, moving it through the right sort of processes, the deal stages. CRMs can be dangerous because these CRMs are great. Salesforce, HubSpot, just to name two of them. I think they're brilliant, and we don't specialize in sort of CRMs, but we know people that do, and they do a great job, and you can automate the whole process. The problem is, if your deal stages aren't correctly set up and your qualification process aren't correctly set up, then everyone who's working off that CRM is qualifying leads incorrectly. And that's not their fault, it's the fault of the individual that set the CRM up. So I'm going to give you a really simple way now to qualify leads and ensure you're having worthwhile conversation where you're not wasting your time. Because we've all come off a call one time and gone, I could have watched Sky Sports News with a cup of tea. It was pointless, right? Or we could have gone out, we could have done another meeting, we could have got our needs into a spreadsheet. So if I'm going to go through this with you, this is the best way, in my opinion, to really qualify a lead. So we call it BANT. I'm sure some of you may have heard of this, some of you may not have heard of this, okay? And it's our budget, authority, need, and timescale version of qualifying a lead. Now, number one, okay, I hear a lot of people talking to people that simply cannot afford their services. Or on the other side of the scale, where they're speaking to someone who's from such a large organization that they might not even look at this company. So getting the budget right is number one to qualifying a lead. I find a lot of people say, this lead's going really well, having this conversation. Well, have you asked what their budget is? No. Well, the lead's not going well. Because if someone says to you, oh, what's your budget? Yeah, I don't have a budget, I'm ready to go. That means they're not going to go. Okay, any business of a significant size that is worth working with, for most of our services on this call, they will have a budget set aside. And those that don't, in my opinion, are not going to be your loyal customers. Okay, we want to work with people that have budgets put aside because they understand how business works. They're going to be a good client for us. So number one, when we're on a call with our leads, when we're having a meeting, let's really qualify them with budget. What is their budget? And you may have 3 packages. So then you understand what package it is I need to sell. So for example, you might have a bronze, silver, gold. Why pitch a gold product at someone who's a bronze client? Because you're just pricing them out the work, okay? When you can bring them on a bronze pack. Number one, budget. Number 2, authority. It's something I see so often. Coach, we're having loads of calls, but we're having calls with contract managers in the construction, let's say, right? What's the contract manager can't sign you off? Okay, so that lead, whatever you've done with it so far, no one can reciprocate your message to your prospects better than you or your team. So if we go and sales vomit over a contracts manager, and they have to then speak to their ops director at the next meeting, do we think they're going to reciprocate the message the way we would? Or are they going to go, I've got a web design company here, they said it's $6,500, it looks pretty good. But you've actually told them all the benefits of using you. You may have a website maintenance plan, but that contracts manager isn't going to go to their ops director or their sales director, their marketing director with that knowledge. So A, make sure we're talking to the right people, or simply don't talk to them at all. If you're 3-4 meetings into a lead and you haven't spoken to a decision maker, you're going to start all over again when you get through to them. Okay, so authority. Number 3, need. Okay, what is it they need? Are we talking to someone who simply does not need our product or service, or do these individuals genuinely want us? Now, we do that through our questions, which we just briefly spoke about. Okay, good questioning will expose a need. And I think sometimes within sales, within our own business, whatever we do, we have to be brave enough to sit there and go, right, unfortunately, even if they do show a bit of interest, but they don't have the right need, we have to sit there and go, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think it works both ways. I don't think you necessarily need our service. I think you need this, and then we refer them elsewhere. Okay. What also happens if you don't actually identify the need correctly, people say to me, I've had a proposal sat in my inbox for 2 months. It's not been signed. Well, they're not going to sign it. I saw a stat somewhere. I think British people are the most polite. It's the whole queuing analogy. So if we're working with clients in the UK, firstly, people don't like to say no. So we have to give them the opportunity to say no. By establishing a need, both for us and for them, we will understand, are they genuinely interested, or simply are they just being polite? And finally, timescale for the T. So what timescale do your average clients purchase from you in? Okay. So if someone says to you, I'm interested, but I can look at this in a year's time, but your average client, sales process is 6 weeks, this person isn't going to sign on. And if they do, next year you have to start again. I know some industries are different, where you have to, really speak to a lead for a year, maybe a year and a half, and then get sign off. But for majority of us, I imagine it may be a 2 months to a 3-month process to get sign up on an ideal prospect. Okay, so let's understand the time. So ask that question of, if we were to go ahead, when are you looking to start? Okay, don't feel nervous about asking that question, because these individuals, if they're the right clients for you, they will respect the fact that you are busy, and they are probably busy. People hate being pestered. So, throw a line in there. Do you know what? I don't like pestering my clients or my prospects. So did you want to let me know when you're looking to start a campaign, or when you're looking to, conduct of our services, when you want to buy the product? And just by being open and honest, say, look, I don't want to bother you. Now, I get companies following up with stuff that we've not even been quoted, and it goes into a CRM. They've got 300 sales staff, and each one of those 300 sales staff are emailing you daily, or they're phoning you. I'm sure everyone's had that. Okay, that's because they haven't understood our timescale. So budget, authority, need, timescale. If you don't have a process in qualifying leads, I would highly suggest you use this, because it's really simple. Okay, BANT, nice and simple. So creating a multi-channel value-driven lead generation strategy. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you the basics of what I would call a 7 to 8 touch point multi-channel value-driven lead generation strategy. I can also send this out to everyone afterwards if you would like it, so you can have a look at it. Now, the reason it's just a basic version is in everyone's business, stages could be slightly different, okay? And where you've all joined me today, what I've done is I'm actually happy to, after this call, and if you would like to, spend 30 minutes on a Teams call, Zoom call, and if you're near us, I'm happy to do face-to-face, sort of creating a bespoke version for you and helping you make that tailor-made to your business. So if this is something you would like me to get in touch with you afterwards, just pop a yes in the box, and I'm sure after the call I'll drop you an email. We can organise a time for that. So far, we'll give it a couple more seconds and we'll move on. That's Heather. I hope I've not gone too fast so far. There's a lot to get through, and I know everyone's really busy. Okay, we've got a few guesses here. If you want to obviously think about it, put yes later, please do. I'm just going to move through this and get us through this. So number one, stage one of our 8 touch process. This is very generic. Please bear that in mind. Okay, so part of our lead generation strategy, we want to start with a qualification call. Okay, So we want to phone our prospects and qualify them. We're not selling to them. We don't want to generate a lead. We either want to speak to someone on ground level that I was talking about earlier, okay? Or we want to speak to a decision maker, but just have a genuine conversation with them to find out if it is a prospect worth us pursuing. Now, why this is value-driven lead generation? We're not chucking in 1,000 prospects at the top of this funnel, okay? Well, these prospects are finally chosen before the qualification call is made, and we are putting in maybe 50 a week at the top of this funnel. So 200, just get a calculator out, Alex, 200 solid prospects at the top of our funnel, okay? Once we come away from that with our decision maker's name and email address, okay, what I will do, I would then take that away, and then day 2, so the day after the qualification call, I would then look to make that email intro and connection on LinkedIn, okay? When I say email, what I mean is that value-driven email. Provide some education based on what content you have to your prospect. This process is tailored for us knowing who we want to work with, not those that come to us from inbound lead gen, okay? We know who we want to work with, and I'm sure you all have at least 20 prospects that you really want to work with. So once we do the qualification call, the day after, we send them a nice, polite, informal email with a PDF, a link to a case study, a link to a free resource attached, where we're saying, have a read of it, it may be really beneficial to you. Okay, we're providing value. We're still not selling to them. Day 4, 2 days after the email intro and the connection made on LinkedIn, we'll do our first follow-up call. And this is our follow-up call, okay? That will be, we've already gathered a little bit of intelligence, so we'll go further there. We will then look to generate the lead and build that relationship as well. So our first follow-up call to get hold of decision maker, sometimes we won't, okay? And really have that conversation about the value-driven content you sent. The key here is don't talk about your solution. Talk about the value-driven content that was sent out, whether that was the educational piece, whether that was the case study, whether that was the blog, okay? Because they will be intrigued. And the best thing to think about is that even if they haven't read it, they will ask you what was it? And then you can start to explain to them, okay? Once you've built that relationship and they understand what we're trying to give them, then we can look to generate the lead, okay? Moving on from that, if that first follow-up call does not generate us a lead, 2 days later, day 6, once they connect with us on LinkedIn, assuming they do, most will, we know it's about 70-75% rate of connection accepted if your profile is up to scratch, okay? So day 6, you want to send that LinkedIn message out, okay? Really, once again, just relevant to the point with a call to action and beneficial to them. So Adam. We spoke briefly on the phone. We did send some information via email. Typically, Adam, those businesses that work with us are X, Y, Z. Does that sound like you? As I said on the email, I'd love to get a chance to speak to you. Do you have 15 minutes in the diary? So really simple, straight to the point. A lot of people on LinkedIn try to send comedy messages. I had one saying, do you watch Modern Family? The problem with that is if I don't watch Modern Family, which I do, it's a great program, but if I don't watch it, it wouldn't apply to me. So it's a very risky way of going about it. And then you get the how are yous. I don't care how you are, and they don't care how you are. They honestly, if you've never met them before, they're not going to care how you are. But what can we do to help them, and what can they do to help us? And then once you get that meeting with them is where you build the rapport with them, okay? Now, day 8, we do our second follow-up call, okay? This is bearing in mind at any point of this process, if we get the lead, obviously the process ends there. I'm sure everyone knows that already, but we don't continue with it once the lead's generated. So we've got a second follow-up call, really informal again, really polite, just saying, did you receive the email intro? Did you receive the LinkedIn message? And go from there, okay? And look to generate that lead. Day 10, email follow-up. Value, lead generation, familiarization, okay? So email with educational value, with a call to action, okay? Now, day 12, 2 days after that, we would send them a LinkedIn follow-up message. Now, if you get these follow-up messages right, and they're humanized, not bot-generated, you will get more responses from the second message than you do from your first message, okay? And everyone that hasn't done this will assume it's going to be a rude message, leave me alone, blah, blah, blah. I can tell you now, 1 in 50 will come back rude if you phrase the message really politely, really sort of personally. So something along the lines of, hi Adam, I don't know if you saw our previous message, I was just checking in to see, so just make sure that you had a chance to read it. So really short, informal, just so that a notification goes off again on their LinkedIn. We don't want to surround them with any more value, any more sort of pain point. Just really make that notification bell on their phone go off. That's all we want to do, okay? By this point, if we haven't generated a lead, at day 15, we send them a close-off email, okay, with our contact details, and then we put that lead aside. Once we put that lead aside, we can then remarket to them 2 months later. Because people forget about prospects, but it may just be they don't need your service right now. I'm sure everyone on this course had someone recently, I spoke to them 8 months ago, okay, they've just come on board as a client, okay? So making sure we do this 15-day, 8-touch process. In some of your businesses, it might be a 5-touch if that's what you feel comfortable with. Some of your businesses, it could be a 7. I know some businesses that do a 14-touch process, okay? This is very generic, and the guys that have said yes, I'm more than happy to help them build their unique touch process. But this gives you an idea of what our process here looks like, okay? So the key points from today, okay? So really, number one, what we want to be doing is we want to be educating our prospects, okay? So how do we educate? Value-driven, value-driven, value-driven. If you take anything away from this, it pains me to say, we started as a telemarketing company, okay? We have had to adapt as times have changed. And what is really getting people talking to our prospects and our clients' prospects is educational value. And if you don't have anything drawn up or written up, I would highly recommend, we don't do copywriting. You go find a copywriter, there's loads of them. I can help you with some referrals if you need one, and you get some good value-driven content written up, or get yourself on video, even better, okay? Key point number 2, through whatever lead generation we do, let's look to create relevance. Let's make it relevant, because everyone gets annoyed with lead generation methods that are not relevant to them, okay? And finally, once this is done, once you've educated, once you've created relevance, look to create a relationship with the prospect, and then go ahead to generate leads. If you think about some of your worst clients, you have to tell us who they are, don't worry, okay? You probably don't have a relationship with them. Okay, we actually did a client persona in-house the other day with the team where we wrote down our 20 top clients. Okay, and we could actually brand those 20 in a box, and you could put all 20 in a room and they would all get on with each other. It was quite eye-opening, actually. Okay, that's because we've got the same relationship with customer number 1 as we do with customer number 2. Some of our other customers, they don't fit that bracket, and that's because we don't have that relationship with them. So don't just stop at creating relevance and go straight for the lead generation, because once you have that relationship, once the lead's created, once the meeting's booked, they will actually want to speak to you because they like you. Now, this is not something that can be taught, it's personality led. Okay, so if you've got the right personality, you can speak across all different spectrums. So whether they're into sports, whether they're into politics, you have to be very versatile. But we have to mirror our prospects, okay? Mirroring our prospects is the number 1 way we will sell, okay? So that's education, make it relevant, and create a relationship, generate the leads, all right? So we have gone through that very quickly. So I just want to say thank you for everyone for joining us to start with, okay? And if you do have any questions, now's the time to pop them in the chat box, and I'll be more than happy to answer. We'll wait to see if any come through. How do you identify your target audience? Good question. So I mentioned earlier regarding personas just now, okay? So I would highly recommend this activity to everyone. Go away, top 20 clients, write them down, look at their profile pictures on LinkedIn, look at what they do in their spare time, what do you know about them? And I reckon at least 60% of your top 20 clients, you could probably push into a room together and they'd all get on. So number 1, I would heavily recommend drawing up personas of your existing client base, and then offer the basis of that creating a demographic? Anyone else? What industries work the best to generate leads on LinkedIn? Interesting. So majority industries are quite good to generate leads on LinkedIn. The ones where you sometimes fall behind, I would say, is maybe in the modern day everyone uses it, but maybe the construction industry. Sort of if you're going for a site manager or you're trying to target these individuals who, they don't really need to use LinkedIn because they're on the tools every day, they're on site every day. But apart from that, I think it's really useful for all industries because if you're a thriving, growing business, you want to be present on LinkedIn. Cool. I think that seems like it's it. So, no, I appreciate you guys joining us today and giving us 45 minutes of your time. Hope that's helped. As I say, if you have any questions, please ask me afterwards, drop me an email. And once again, if you would like any sort of the 30 minutes, if you haven't said yes yet, please pop that in the chat. And yeah, we'll get this recorded copy. If anyone wants another copy of it, get it out to you, get the presentation out to you. And hopefully you'll join us in 3 months' time for our next webinar. Sort of do an outro, let everyone sort of fade out. Yeah, good shout, Dermot. If anyone wants to put their details in the chat as you leave, then it'll be open for connection for everyone as well.
Cheers, buddy. Thanks for the presentation. I'll speak to you soon.
Cool. Thanks, Dermot. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, buddy.
Okay. Superb. Right, guys, we're going to call it a day. Have a cracking afternoon. All right, cheers.